Hey guys, we are here with a much requested hair tutorial video. I haven't done one of these in a while, but this one is going to be different. I am going to tell you 25 tricks to draw hair like a pro. And while I'm doing it, I'm going to draw some hair. In fact, here's the reference picture I am using, which brings me to the first trick. You should use a reference photo. Say what? Yeah! It helps out. There's a lot of detail in hair, and believe it or not, having a reference photo really saves the day. And if you're just starting, here's an extra little tip. I would suggest drawing pictures of your own hair. Why? Well, you look in the mirror enough, you know your hair very well, and you understand your hair type, so it's probably gonna be more intuitive, and it'll come more naturally to you if you draw your own hair at first. The second thing, when you're starting, draw the shape of the hair first. That's going to set you up for everything. So you see here, I started by drawing the head and the shoulders, and now I'm placing the hair around that with a very vague shape. Because we're going to start with simple, build the details later. The third thing, if you elevate the front of the hair where the scalp and the part kind of meet, this will really help your hair look like it's very three-dimensional, healthy. You have a lot of strands on your head, and these things overlap. It's not going to be plastered to your head, so yeah, depending on the hairstyle, you might want to just enhance that volume right at the part. And another little trick, if you are using color, include the skin tone inside of the part, because all those little strands don't cover every little bit of your scalp. You can still see your skin coming through your hair if you look closely. The fourth thing, hair is very soft. What does that mean? Well, if it's touching something that is harder than it will most likely take the shape around that object. Imagine it being like a liquid, but not liquid, if that helps you. So say you tuck your hair behind your ears, your hair is not gonna just stand straight and never rest. It will fall around your ears. Same goes for hair clips, running your hands through your hair, shoulders, etc. Now there are, I would say, exceptions to this. For instance, if you're using a lot of hair products, your hair might actually be a little more stiff. Or if you have a different ethnicity, different types of hair don't always follow these rules. Also, if you have like super thin hair, it might just be a lot more flexible and very much cater to this rule. So it really depends on types of hair, ethnicity, hair products, etc. Here is the exception tip. Different ethnicities have different hair textures, such as African Americans have very tight curls. Asians can have more silky, straight hair. All of these textures that everybody has, ranging from Caucasian, Hispanic, all the textures are different. Even different cultures, some cultures do dreads and stuff. All of these things have to be taken into account. So depending on what kind of hair you're drawing may depend on whether or not some of these later tips will be applicable. I will leave that up to you to decide depending on what you are drawing. The sixth tip. Let's talk about shading. Alright, if you are just using pencil or just a ballpoint pen or even marker, this still applies, don't worry. There is no right or wrong way to shade. I mean, honestly, when I shade anything I'm drawing, I pretty much always shade from light to dark. But when I do hair, I actually shade from dark to light because it feels more intuitive. So what I'm saying is, because hair is such a complicated, detailed thing, you have to do what's more intuitive to you. If your thought process comprehends shading from dark to light better with hair, do it. If your thought process works better doing light to dark, you can do that too. It's kind of like that weird thing when people are playing baseball, they find out that they bat with the opposite hand that they write with, or something like that. By now you have seen me make many little lines. These lines are pretty short and kind of weird, right? Well, let me tell you what I'm doing. This is tip number 7. I am drawing my strands in the direction of the hair. So you saw my reference photo. It is wavy hair. Each little wave goes in a different direction. With each wave, I have to change the direction of my strands. That brings me to tip number 8, gravity. This will influence the direction of your hair because gravity always pulls strands downward, even if there's a force holding it up. Kind of odd, right? Well, think about it. If you put your hair in a ponytail, look really closely at that hair that pulls back into it. There's those little saggy swoops. Even if you braid your hair, it still kind of swoops down before it goes back over into the next portion of the braid. Now again, there are exceptions to this gravity thing, such as ethnicity and hair products, so I will note that. Again, I mentioned all these short little strands I'm drawing. Trick number 9, length of your strands. What even determines that anyway? Well, your length of your hair can determine that. If you're drawing male's hair and it is like a shaved buzz cut, you're gonna have tons of little lines, dude. Like, way shorter than the strands I'm drawing right now. But also hair type can determine how long each little strand or stroke or line is, if you will. For instance, curly hair has that like ribbon effect. Those will be shorter lines. Wavy hair, kind of shorter lines, and even straight hair. Because, let me bring you to the next tip. Number 10, straight hair, believe it or not, is not toothpick straight when you're drawing it. Look closely at your reference photos. If you have straight hair, look at your own hair. If you try to draw each strand like toothpick straight as a ruler, absolutely no curve to it, it will look so stiff. Like, it won't even look natural. So even straight hair has a little bit of curve to it. It's just kind of hard to notice it in real life. 11. You see me drawing all these little lines with very dark colors right now. These are what we call low lights, and later I will start going in with lighter colors to create highlights. What does this do? It creates depth. You want that because hair is three-dimensional and it will really make all those little subtle details pop in the end. 12. Another little side tip, hair is usually slightly darker at the roots. Not super noticeable sometimes, but yeah, slightly darker. And if you have hair dyes, that can be an exception, but yeah. If you hold the very ends of your hair to your roots, if you have long hair, you will see exactly what I mean, and it is really weird. 13. This one is kind of a hard one to grasp with drawing hair, but you have to separate what you see from what you know. So there are approximately 100,000 strands of hair on the human head. It's a lot of hair, and as I previously said, it's layered all around the scalp. This is what creates volume, but you don't actually see every single strand, so don't try to draw all of that. That can get overwhelming and hinder you from actually creating the hair that you're trying to go for. So set aside the fact that there are tons of hairs on the head. While we're on the topic of separating what we see from what we know, hair strands are usually in groups or clusters. This is especially true with curly hair. It kind of has a ribbon-like behavior, and it kind of naturally makes it appear to have little groups. So I'm going to show you this picture of ribbon, and you're going to see all these little curves and fold-overs that kind of happen. I'll draw some arrows so you see that. But these are these little groups and clusters, and with wavy hair, you kind of see that in my picture too. There's these little sections where only a portion of that hair is waving in that direction, but if you look like an inch to the left or right, you might see hair waving in a different direction, and that's like its own little section or group kind of thing. 15. Hair can be messy. It is okay to draw hair to be a little bit messy, but what's not okay in terms of messiness is how you shade. So you kind of want hair to look a little bit messy so it's not like super stiff, but when you shade each strand, do not be messy. What I mean by this, lift your drawing utensil with each stroke. You will notice how often I lift my hand and do these very small line segments. In between each segment, I lift my utensil. I don't drag it to the next stroke. If you drag it, it will create these like zigzagged weird lines, and you will notice that in the end, it won't look as clean, it won't look as crisp, it'll look kind of like fuzzy and blurry, and you just don't want to do that. 16. Wavy hair has thin tips at the bottom of each wave. So look at the bottom of the hair that I'm drawing. It kind of thins out, and it's most obvious at the bottom of the hair because the hair is like kind of ending, but the waves kind of just get thinner at the bottom and like taper off. You can kind of notice it with some other waves within the hair, but that is the most obvious thing. Number 17. This one is probably really obvious, but it's nice to have a reminder here and there, right? Alright, it is okay not to like your first few attempts. I will repeat that. It is perfectly okay if you do not like the first few attempts of hair that you draw. Just keep trying. Each time you try, you do improve. You might not notice it, but you really do, so don't give up. That brings us to number 18. If you're a beginner, or if you just don't feel comfortable with drawing hair, I would suggest that you save or somehow document each attempt that you do. Because later on, you can look back at all your attempts and see the gradual improvement. And I think this is really important for anything as an artist, for like anything you want to improve, to look back at your progress. It is super encouraging, and it helps you to see what you've improved on and to see what you can still improve on. Number 19, if you get frustrated, or maybe you're just at a weird spot with drawing your hair, taking breaks is so crucial for making your hair turn out really well. Again, this can go for any art project, but if you take a break and you return later, you will find that your mind feels a little refreshed, and you may have a new perspective on how to do something differently, and just a newfound motivation to finish your project. Number 20. Alrighty guys, raise your hand if you watch James Charles, or just raise your hand if you watch any beauty guru on YouTube. You have probably heard the saying, eyebrows are sisters, not twins. This holds true for hair as well. If you're drawing hair and there is a part at the top of the head, the right side will never match the left side. Even if there is no part, the right side will never match the left side. It will never be perfectly symmetrical. If it is, that's weird, and it's not that natural. I mean, look in the mirror. Your hair falls in different ways everywhere. There's no like formula to it. Each time you lift it and drop it, it will fall differently, and the right side will never fall the exact mirror image, same symmetrical way as the left side. So just let go of that thought and move on. Let the sides be sisters and embrace it. Number 21, don't rush. It will be very obvious in the end if you do, and you don't want to do that. Number 22, whether you're just using a pencil, colored pencils, markers, hair has a lot of values to it. There's a lot of different shades from dark to light, light to dark. You see like dark browns, yellows, and reds, and copper tones throughout this hair. There's just a lot of values that go into it, and that's what takes a lot of time, so don't cheap out on that. Number 23, if you really want to enhance the realistic effect of hair, add flyaways at the end. You can see that I've already added a couple of them to my picture. I just didn't mention it, but yeah, really helps. Number 24, if you want super realistic highlights or lowlights. For the highlights, you can scrape your paper very, very lightly with an exacto knife. It will lift things. Wouldn't suggest that for wet media like marker because that soaks in, but if you're using dry media like charcoal, colored pencil, it'll work. Alternatively, you could use a white gel pen or an electric eraser to lift color. Now, if you want super realistic lowlights, you can do what I'm doing and use a very fine point, like black marker or a very sharp colored pencil that's really dark, and add a lot of individual strands at the end of your project. And the 25th thing, this one is the one I want you to really just take away with you guys because I love you, but have fun and don't give up. All right, that's all I have for you. I hope you found these tips and tricks super helpful. Go out there, show the world what you got, keep practicing. You will be a pro if you just don't give up. Takes a lot of time though. I mean, I've been doing this for like years. It's okay. I didn't like my first couple, but it gets better. Yours will get better too. Have a good day. Have fun, as I said. And thanks for sticking around for this like really long video. Bye guys.